Hello everybody, today I wanted to go over how you can go ahead and install a Catless downpipe on your Alfa Romeo Stelvio. After doing this, you are going to need to have your car tuned, or you can use a spark plug non-fouler to kind of push away the downstream O2 sensor to make it take in less exhaust gases, therefore reading it less and thinking that the catalytic converter is working. So essentially, the way that I went about this, and the way that you're going to have to go about this if you're doing this on a Stelvio, if you're doing it on a Giulia, it's a little bit easier. So, first off, take out this 13mm from here. Take out this 13mm from here. It's holding the strut brace on. You're going to want to remove the clip here. It's what holds the cowl to the strut brace. Then you're going to want to disconnect the downstream O2 sensor, which is usually located here. Pull that off, and afterwards you're going to want to remove the cowl. Nobody else brings this up, not that there's many videos about this on YouTube, but the number one thing if you're doing this, even on a Giulia, is just remove the cowl. Now, if you want a video of actually doing and removing everything and putting in the Catless downpipe, I believe there's a YouTuber called Alfa. It's called oil cooler gasket replacement on a Giulia. Because the oil cooler gasket is being blocked by the catalytic converter, you need to remove it. He removes it, he's at the dealer, he does it the right way. This is how I did it, I'm just going to explain everything. Okay, after you have the cowl removed, this is where the fun part comes in. You're going to need to remove the coolant line coming from here, going to here, behind the turbo. So, this coolant line in and itself is a pain in the ass right here, because there's a 10mm, and then there's a 10mm just below it because it is a 2-bolt flange. So, you can go ahead and pop off the clip here, as you can see if the camera focuses. There is a little, okay, you can barely see it, but there's a little plastic or a little metal clip. You insert a screwdriver, pull back on that, it pops out. It doesn't fall out, it just pops out. And then you can go ahead and tug on the line. It shouldn't take much force, pull it up a little bit, then push the clip back in so the clip doesn't go anywhere. If you lose the clip, then you're going to have to get a whole new line, a whole new assembly. Same thing over here, go into the heater core. You're going to want to go ahead and you can't really see it over here all that well, but you can barely see it actually. You can go ahead and insert it here and then pry back. It'll pop out, won't fall out, do the same thing. Next, you can take out the two 10mm bolts here. An electric ratchet is going to save you from losing your sanity, so you should get one before doing this job. Or a flex head, 1/4 inch with an extension. Regardless, you're going to need a set of extensions for this job. And I'll make a list of parts in the description. Once you get that out, the fun part is going to be the bracket. I'll try to show this with the camera. I don't even know how they did this from the factory. This is absurd. As you can see, this bracket over here is bent. That's because I bent it, I omitted it when I was reinstalling everything. So that bracket is essentially secured. Well, it's secured somewhere around here. It's secured somewhere around here. You'll see it. It's going to be a pain in the ass. It's going to be a nightmare getting that bracket out. At least it was for me. And you're going to need flex head, open-ended ratchets. So, believe me, that'll make your life a lot easier when getting this bracket out. Once you get the coolant line out, and this is one of the easy parts, once you get the coolant line out, pull it over, just pull it out of the car, move it to the side. You're going to need to wiggle it out. It's going to be kind of a pain. You don't need to remove this to get it out, believe it or not. Okay, next thing, heat shield. And I'll show you the heat shield. Actually, let me pause the video, get the heat shield, and be right back. Okay guys, this is the heat shield. This is where the upstream O2 sensor sits, and then this heat shield is actually really well made. It's OEM. It's just a big chunk of, well, sheet metal with protective layering. So, there are going to be bolts. Lots and lots of bolts. To my knowledge, they're all 10mm. So, it sits on the catalytic converter like this. And then you have one here, here. You have one. You're not going to be able, of course, get to those. That's not where the bolt holes are. You have one that sits It's a bracket holding it on. It's going to be somewhere around here. Anyway, just for visual, this is the heat shield. Now back to the car. Now, you don't need to put the heat shield back, because what the catalytic converter does is the catalytic converter heats up. That's how it converts the harmful gases to non-harmful gases. It gets super, super hot. Obviously, you won't have that problem if you're doing catless. If you're not going catless and you're putting a high flow cat, then still put the heat shield on. I would put the heat shield on in that scenario because it's still going to heat up. That's why it has to catalytic convert. So, you're going to want to remove the downpipe bolts. So with the cowl on, this is how much room you have, because I didn't put the heat shield back. You can see here, not burning my hand. You can barely see it. These are the bolts. There's going to be 2 bolts on the top. There's going to be 2 bolts on the bottom. Now, you can look at pictures of the catalytic converter, or actually, I'll show you the catalytic converter so you know what I'm talking about. This is the catalytic converter. As you can see, you have 2 bolts down here. One broke off for me. This thing's large in person. Then you have 4 bolts. So you can actually, and this is why you have to remove it from the top. Well, one of the reasons. You can't remove it from the bottom, it's too big. But these won't be that tight, the bottom bolts. Now, it's mounted to the car like this. So going over, this is easy to get to, right? This is the one closest to you when you're looking at the car, closest to the fender. This is the one on the other side. This one is going to be pretty difficult to get to. These are all 13mm bolts, by the way. So you're going to need a long ratchet. Now, this is going to make your life crazy amount easier. Get one. It'll be worth it, because you're not going to need it just here. You're also going to need it removing this bracket here. And I'll explain to you that in a second. These bottom bolts are pretty easy to get to. I don't think that they were difficult. That's in my opinion. Of course, you need to unbolt the O2 sensors. Those aren't going to be stuck on. Those are pretty simple because they're always being heated. Use some WD-40 and use a adjustable wrench. That one comes off, and then you have one right here. This one comes off real easy. And make sure you take a look inside your catalytic converter. As you can see, my engine was running right. So, going down under the car, you have an EGR. Now, EGR meaning exhaust gas recirculation. I deleted the system on mine, and I will make another video on that about why you should do it and how to do it on this car. Now, there's going to be a bolt here. It's 16mm. Go ahead and unscrew it. That flange isn't going to come off that easy. You're going to need to pry it off with a screwdriver or a pick or a prybar and then move it over to the side. The hose is full metal. It's not really going to flex that much. You're going to have to wiggle it around, and it's going to be a pain in the ass. These, just make sure that you don't do what I did. Use penetrating fluid, use a lot of heat, and then just take these off. To my knowledge, I think these are both 13mm as well. So you should be pretty good here. They're not that difficult with an impact. You can do it with a wrench. I'd recommend an impact. Okay, now, that is the easy part. Getting the catalytic converter to be in a situation where you can just pull it out of the car, right? You'd think. Well, you'd be wrong. Usually, and I say usually because I ripped mine off, there is heat shielding around the catalytic converter. Now, these brackets hold on the catalytic converter, and it bolts to the side of the car. It bolts to the side. Now, it's going to bolt to the side towards the transmission, and what you can do is, after you take this out, you can unbolt it here. There's 3 bolts. I believe they're 13s. Anyway, this usually sits on here, like this. Or like this, because the O2 sensor's not facing you when you're under the car. Like this. Okay, so you'd think to yourself, right? All you gotta do is, unbolt it. You'll be fine. Wrong. For me, when I started unbolting it, as I started unbolting it, it actually got tighter. Don't worry, you're going in the right direction. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, and it'll just keep getting tighter. It won't snap on you. It'll just keep getting tighter. but try and loosen that bolt as much as you can. And this is coming from the top of the car going down. It's going to be on the left-hand side bolt. When you go under the car, or on the right-hand side bolt, if you're looking from the top, it's going to be significantly easier to remove. Use your long ratchet, just like you did for the top one, well, when you were coming from the top, and then ratchet that one out. For me, that one came out just fine. No issues at all. Next, you can go ahead and bend the heat shield, just bend the shit out of it, take out all your anger on it, bend it, and it'll come out. After that, you can go ahead and unbolt the bracket itself to remove the rest of it from the car. Now, I actually took it into the garage here and cut it off with a Sawzall because I couldn't get the bolts out, even with the bracket out of the car with full access. With heat, no matter what I did, I couldn't get it out. So, with that being said, that's pretty much it. That's all you're going to need to do. Put the new downpipe in. It comes with, at least I got mine from RMJ Performance. So it comes with all this stuff right here. All this stuff. This one bracket. So other than that, it also comes with the gasket for the bottom connection. So, I mean, I didn't reuse my old gasket. I just had an extra one on me. I didn't use theirs. All right. Well, that's pretty simple. Back to the car. Okay, once you have the downpipe in, it'll sit like it's sitting right now for me. For me, the heat shield I don't think fit. That's why I didn't put it back on. Regardless, I wrapped my coolant line in heat-resistant, film or shielding. You can go ahead and reuse the old gasket for the coolant line. I used high-temp RTV and sealed everything up. So you can replace the gasket if you want. Actually, I'd recommend replacing it. If you're in a pinch, you can reuse the old one. Then just reassemble everything and you're done. And it overall is not as hard as replacing an alternator on a 2007 Ford Escape, but it's a pretty difficult job. And I can see why there's not a lot of videos on YouTube about it. There's going to be a video about the catalytic converter or downpipe install by somebody who doesn't speak English but provides an absolutely phenomenal video. So you can go ahead and watch their video, look it up. They'll actually be the first ones you find because of how good their video is. And then of course there is Alfa Tech with the oil cooler gasket replacement because it's blocked with the catalytic converter. He'll explain to you how to remove it. Regardless, have a good day, be safe, and this is how you do it.